Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Wild Like a Flower Gardening. My name is Sarah and I'm going to be giving you a short garden update of some of my potted wildflowers and some of my seed starting methods here. Nothing is really formal, everything is a little wacky, so bear with me. I've also got a little bit of traffic going on, which is why I have the headphones in, and please don't at me for not having AirPods. We're living rather frugally here, and some of you may know that I spent the portion of, a new vehicle on my dog for some medical bills to get her back up and running. So we're gonna, try to do this little garden update. Bear with me for the wind and a little bit of traffic. So let's get right into it. Okay, so one of the first plants I want to talk about is this Phlox that I picked up last year. I think it's very beautiful. It was one of my first blooming plants. However, it got pretty tall, and with it being on the front porch and high spring winds, the winds just snapped one of the tall stems off right as it started to bloom. And then the second one started to bloom like a week or two later, and the wind totally made that one snap off as well. I also grew some marigolds in here. These are the leftover stems, and the marigolds got huge and gave me lots of blooms. I didn't take the phlox out because I figured it would come back to life this year. And once it does that, then I'll figure out if I want to put it in a bigger pot or if I want to put it in the ground somewhere. I am debating on offering to put some plants in by the sign here at my apartment complex for my landlord, and this will probably be one of the ones that I do that with, just because I think it would benefit from being in the ground and not in a pot, especially in an area where there's nothing shading it from the wind. I think these are some marigold seeds that have germinated, which is cool if they want to keep doing their thing. I don't know if I'll leave them in there or if I will transplant them. But these are the little phlox stems coming back. So I think it'll do what it did last year, give me 2 stems, which is really cool. And I mean, you can see it pictured here. It's very lovely. It just really does not do well in areas where there's high winds and no protection. This guy here is a balloon flower, and I have been updating you guys on my Instagram with this one coming back. It was one of the first plants that I have in pots here to put on any leaves and pop up above the soil. So super exciting that this guy looks like it's really going to be returning. I'm excited because that means less plants I have to buy. So this pot here is a medley. I had some blazing star, I did some bee balm, some Monarda, and everything that was in here was very successful. The Monarda got very big. I'll drop some pictures in here so you can see what it looked like, and the blazing star did well. This was probably one of my most successful plants as far as attracting pollinators. The bees really loved the Monarda, which makes sense. It's a great nectar source. I even had somebody make a little nest down here. I'm guessing maybe that was some kind of wasp, so that's cool. So what's returning? Obviously the catnip. Now, anything that's in the mint family, like herb-wise, can kind of get aggressive. I threw some catnip in a few of my pots for sprout, and if they take over these pots, I will probably rip them out because they're not that important. But I'm letting them do their thing. We're going to see how they want to behave and if they inhibit the growth of the natives that I have in these pots. But you can see here, I don't know if this part of the bee balm is being shot up from root growth or if it's seeds that had germinated, because I kind of took a lot of the seed heads, you can see one here, and sprinkled them back into the pot in hopes that it would drop a lot of the seeds in here. So I'm really hopeful. You can see some new Monarda growth right here. So I would say growing it in a pot was very successful, and I'm really excited about that. So over here, this is another medley. I started some seeds from a seed pack, like a mix, and I separated them, and I kind of figured as this one first started to sprout that it was Black-Eyed Susans, and so I put in this pot with another little Monarda and a little purple coneflower. This one is a cultivar. It didn't get very big. This is another plant that if I offer to drop some by the sign for my landlord, that I will leave behind because I have some really good purple coneflower seeds that I've been starting on my own. And I think that since this one's a cultivar, I'd rather leave it behind and grow the true species in my pots. But if you look closely, just in the last couple days down here, you can see some green growth coming back. So really exciting to see that this purple coneflower made it through the winter, made it through that really cold couple weeks, and is probably going to come back and bloom for me. You can see over here that the Monarda is returning as well. Now this one did not do so well for me. It got a lot of that like mildew, and the leaves started to get really sad, and this one never bloomed. Bummed, but we'll see how it does this year. Then with these black-eyed Susans, they did really well. I'll drop some pictures in. Lots of blooms. This guy bloomed all the way into October, which was really cool. And it never stopped being green. It has had basal green growth at the bottom all winter long, and you can see these are probably gonna, start sprouting here as it gets a little bit warmer, and will probably give me even more blooms this year. So I'm super stoked about that. And this is a true species for black-eyed Susans, that Rudbeckia hirta, however you want to pronounce it, because I got it out of a native seed mix for Ohio. Now I'm wondering, because I did sprinkle some of the seeds back in, if this is going to be another black-eyed Susan. I can't imagine it being a root sprout because it's kind of farther from the plant. So I did sprinkle seeds in, so it could either be some seeds that germinated, or it could be something shooting up from the roots. But either way, I'm really excited to start seeing that. And I think it's the black-eyed Susans because it's so hairy. And this is a plant, I really can't remember the name of it. One of my friends gave it to me. I think it's some kind of like species of concern, and it really did not do well. I'm probably not growing it appropriately, and it probably doesn't like pots, but once I remember what it's called, and as it returns to life, I'll update you guys on it, but for right now we're just gonna pretend like it's not there. Now over here, I'm not really sure what this is. You see this little guy? It doesn't feel like grass, so I don't know what that's gonna be. I really don't. So we'll see what that turns into, and I will update you guys. So this here is my Yarrow. It is a cultivar. You can see here on the tag, it's got those pinks and yellow colors. So it's not a true straight species, but I snagged it at the farmer's market because I really wanted to try one. It was green all winter long, but then this new growth really started to kick up in the last couple weeks, like maybe 2 weeks ago. It really started to pop. It's in a pretty big pot. This is 9 gallons, or just over 9 gallons. So if you're looking to grow native wildflowers, I would highly recommend getting as big of a pot as possible. And if you can find something that is 9 gallons, that is what I have found to be the most successful. That's what my black-eyed Susan, Monarda, and coneflowers were in. And I think this Blazing Star and Monarda were just under 9 gallons, but still very successful in this pot here. I did not expect the Yarrow to get as big as it did. I ended up needing to pot it up twice, eventually putting it into one of these pots on its own. I'm very shocked that one single plant required an entire 9-gallon pot, but whatever works, I guess. It's a really nice green foliage addition to the front porch, and with all those blooms, it looked really nice, and I was happy to have it, and happy to have it this year. I think that if I continue to grow Yarrow, I'd like to get my hands on some straight species seeds and start it from seed myself. But until then, I'm just going to vibe with this guy because they require apparently such a big pot that I don't think I really want to grow that many more. Because I'd rather use these giant pots for at least 2 or 3 plant species rather than just one single plant. So in this much smaller pot is some ironweed, and the ironweed, I'm not entirely sure if maybe it was smaller because this was its first year of growth, or if it was smaller because I stunted it in this smaller pot, but it did only get about maybe 1.5 feet tall. It did bloom for me, which was really great, but I'm interested to see if I can pot it up into one of these 9 gallons to see how big it gets. If you look closely, you can see that it has started to sprout, which is really exciting. So I'll get at least a couple different stems rather than just the one stalk from this year. And as you can see, I did cut the stem, but I left quite a few inches on there in case we have any stem nesting bees that would like to use it after they emerge here in the spring. So that'll be really cool if I get anybody to move in. I'll keep you posted. I try to leave the vestiges on a lot of my plants if possible for stem nesting bees specifically, and it also helps if you are waiting for the seeds to fully mature and then sprinkle back in the soil. Leaving the vestiges on there as long as possible is really smart. There is a little bit of catnip in here. You know, like I said earlier, I've been sprinkling catnip in these pots mostly for sprout. So I don't want anyone to at me in the comments for my methods. There are much more official and professional ways to start native wildflowers or plants in general. But I'm going to be completely honest with you. When quarantine hit last year, I was watching a lot of Roots and Refuge farm videos, and something that Jess had said was to use red solo cups. And honestly, I'm really thankful that I snagged that piece of advice from her, because they have been one of the most handy containers to start plants in. You just have to put a hole in the bottom because they are way less expensive. They're easier to store in the closet. And when quarantine hit and everyone went insane about gardening, it was really hard to find plant starting supplies. So if you can't find pots to start your plants in, go grab some red solo cups, even if you're just doing like your veggie starts, because I'm using a lot of these for my veggie starts as well, and they were successful last year, and I have good hopes for them this year. And so what I did for these bad boys is I essentially just broadcasted my seeds on top of the soil, and I set these out in January, and we got a lot of those hard frosts and a lot of snow. And so the varieties that I had planted that needed to be cold stratified, I think that was perfect for them. And so I am really excited to show you guys that I do have some sprouts happening. So I don't really do anything super fancy. I just write on the cup, here's from last year. I just write on the cup what I've got in there. Saves me from having to have a tag or a stake. And so in here, maybe if any of you have started echinacea, you can tell me what's happening. I've noticed this guy. I don't know if that's from the echinacea or this other little sprout. You can see him right here. I don't know what's from what. I don't know if maybe some other seeds got in here on accident, but I'm seeing 2 different kinds of sprouts happening. So I will see who does what, because I don't know who's who yet. I also just threw down some Monarda Fistulosa seeds. They don't need to be cold stratified, but I just put them in here because I wanted to get them out since I was doing my round of seed starting anyways. And since the temperatures have been warmer, you can see in here that I've got quite a bit of little green sprouts happening. So the Monarda Fistulosa is doing really well. Started it on January 3rd. So didn't need to cold stratify, did it anyways because I was lazy and I didn't want to be having to do a lot of my seed starting right now. I think this is another Monarda. You can see them in there. So really exciting. So in this container, I have some purple prairie clover that has just started to germinate probably in the last 2 days. So really exciting to see that one is being successful right in a red solo cup. Guys, I mean, I did it this way because I kind of wanted to know how lazy I could be about starting my wildflowers, because living in an apartment, I don't have a whole lot of room for different equipment, and I don't really have the luxury financially to be buying a lot of equipment anyways and using fancy containers. So I am really excited that this really haphazard way is showing some success. Now, after they germinate. Are they going to be successful and turn into big plants? I don't know. Here's another purple prairie clover with a couple little babies germinating in there. And I think, so this is wild geranium, and I've got one germinating in here now. So wild geranium is a spring ephemeral, and I have never grown it before, and I'm really excited to see that it's got a little sprout going on in there. So out of all, the seeds that I've started, the ones that I see germinating so far, I think are the echinacea, the Monarda fistulosa, some wild geranium. I'm not seeing anything from my columbine yet, so we'll see if I get anything out of that. Fingers are crossed because I love wild columbine. So in an attempt to use a couple different methods to start my native wildflowers for cold stratification, I went with the jug method for a few of them. This one, as you can see, is my showy goldenrod, and this one I'm really excited about because you can see some tiny babies in here, so that is a success. I'm hoping that as the season goes on, they all do really well and they continue to grow in here. I did start some milkweeds in these big containers as well. This one here is an old kitty litter container. You can see I put some showy milkweed. And I just broadcasted the milkweed seeds on top. You can see them in there. We have no germination yet. When I started common milkweed seeds last year, I just stratified them on top of some containers, and to be honest, I didn't get any germination until May. So I won't be surprised if I don't see germination for a few more weeks, but I'll be really excited if and when I do. And I do have a few more containers that I started, but these two I just wanted to show you because I wanted to show you that I've got milkweed going on, but also that I've got some success in that one. The rest you can't really see anything. So one more method that I wanted to try was I took this, just this pan, and I put an inch of soil, and I just broadcasted my seeds on top. I've got echinacea in here, and I see no germination yet. The soil's cracking. It's not holding water very well. I think the sun is drying it out more than what I would want to be successful for seed starting. So I may move this so it's somewhere where the sun is not so intense. I get the majority of sunlight out here behind the apartments, and so maybe this is something that I will water and I will move to the front where you only get a couple hours of sunlight in the morning, and then it kind of cools off on that front porch without that direct sunlight. So that might help me out because I would really love to see them be successful. I don't really know what to do with soil that doesn't have any germination because the seeds are still in there. I could probably bag them and see if they want to germinate next year maybe, but if you have any ideas on what to do with soil that has seeds in it that didn't germinate, let me know. So that is my ridiculous and wacky adventure in native plants here in my garden. As you can see, those big 9-gallon pots over there that have those medleys of different wildflowers in them. I've got my red solo cups that have some, germinating babies and a little bit of success, and obviously my jug methods and my pan that I'm not loving. I don't think that if I don't get much success out of that, I don't think I'll do the pan method again just because that soil dries out too much. But everything else seems to be pretty successful. So I'm really happy and excited to see that. So thank you for joining me for this little garden update. I'm excited to show you guys, when these things actually maybe get an inch or two above the soil. So thank you and happy gardening.